Inside the steel belly of a submarine, 800 feet below the surface, one truth defines survival. If you run out of food, you don't just go hungry, you fail the mission. Submariners operate in an environment where a single logistical misstep in food supply can cripple morale, sabotage health, and threaten operational success. For 90 days straight, they pull it off with staggering precision without surfacing or resupply. This is due to a food system that is engineered like a weapon. Weeks of exact preparation unfold before the first hatch is sealed. The U.S. Navy calculates the food a crew of 150 will need down to the last ounce, rather than estimating it. This calculation considers not only calories, but also nutrients, shelf life, cooking times, space constraints, psychological effects, and contingency plans. Under high-stress underwater conditions, every sailor needs about 4,000 calories per day, which equates to 540,000 calories per day, or more than 48 million calories per deployment. Approximately 15,000 pounds of food, or 160 pounds per crew member, is packed before departure for survival. At sea, food is medicine, morale, and discipline. Every ingredient is chosen for its ability to fuel both the body and the mind, as mental sharpness is critical to the mission. The food is engineered to keep minds clear, moods stable, and bodies resilient. This includes tailored macronutrient ratios, essential vitamins, and a variety of meals that boost serotonin. Menu fatigue is a real issue that can cause resentment and distraction under pressure. To combat this, supply teams create cycles of over 21 days of unique meals, combining comfort foods like lasagna with exotic spices and morale meals, such as fresh cookies or surprise steaks. Then there's the physical challenge of limited space, where every inch of a submarine is dedicated to a purpose like missile silos or sonar arrays. There is no room for waste, so packaging is aggressively stripped, and food is resealed into vacuum-packed bags, custom containers, and airtight bins. Oxygen is the enemy, as oxidation causes spoilage, mold, and bacteria. Most items are vacuum-sealed or nitrogen-flushed, often triple-wrapped and meticulously labeled. This is not just for neatness, it is to control decay, bacterial growth, and temperature response. Storage is a game of Tetris with the stakes of warfare. Food is loaded in a reverse hierarchy, with perishables going in last so they are consumed first. Leafy greens and dairy are gone by day 7. Unwashed eggs can last up to 60 days, while apples, onions, and potatoes can last for weeks or even months. Frozen meats are buried in a deep freeze and are only accessible once earlier supplies have run out. Dry goods like flour, lentils, and pasta are rotated in as needed and are kept in humidity-sealed containers to prevent spoilage or infestation.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The rotation protocol is strict. Fresh food is consumed first, followed by frozen, then canned, and finally dried or powdered. This is based on science, as each stage corresponds to the rate of natural degradation, ensuring optimal freshness before moving on to the next. Culinary specialists are trained to monitor moisture, temperature, and signs of spoilage like color degradation, scent, or freezer burn. This constant vigilance ensures there is no waste and no risk. Submarines use high-end preservation technology, such as freeze drying, to remove water and halt microbial life. Controlled atmosphere chambers adjust oxygen and CO2 levels to slow the respiration rates of fruits and vegetables. Temperature mapping ensures deep freezers have even cooling, which prevents hotspots that can lead to thaw and refreeze cycles. Some modern submarines even have smart sensors that track degradation in real time and signal when specific items need to be used. Despite the technology, human psychology remains the wild card. Underwater deployments are intense, with artificial sleep cycles, no sunlight, and absolute isolation, making food a psychological anchor. Meals are structured for morale as well as biology, with pancakes on Sunday and pizza on Friday. Birthdays are celebrated with surprise cakes or ice cream that are stocked in hidden compartments for emotional impact. The culinary team knows the crew by name, preference, and stress pattern. They act as therapists with aprons, fueling resilience in addition to bellies. A hot meal served after 60 days underwater can be the difference between cohesion and collapse. The costs of failure are catastrophic, as improper food planning has led to emergency surface maneuvers. In the 1980s, one U.S. sub reportedly surfaced early because of miscalculated protein rations. Even a minor issue, such as spoiled produce contaminating sealed dry storage, can compromise days of meals and cause panic, resentment, or illness. Submariners cannot afford to make mistakes. Food poisoning at 800 feet below the surface is a crisis. This is why culinary specialists receive intensive training that includes caloric tables, disease vectors, vacuum sealing, cold chain logistics, and emergency substitution plans. They drill contingency meals and must master over 200 standardized recipes that are modified for submarine constraints. They perform these tasks knowing that morale, performance, and sometimes life itself depend on their work. On a submarine, there is no guesswork. It is engineering disguised as cuisine. This obsession with precision is not paranoia. It is a result of lessons learned in silence. Submarines cannot call for help or ask for backups, as they operate in total radio silence for most missions. If you run out of onions, you adapt. If you run out of protein, you fail. Every ounce of beef is triple counted. Every carrot is logged, and every flour bag is weighed and recorded. Within this efficiency, creativity exists, and culinary teams often invent fusion meals mid-mission, such as improvised curries or makeshift stir-fries using aging ingredients and skill. These moments are more than clever. They are survival rituals that turn confinement into comfort and transform isolation into identity. Food becomes a rhythm, a ritual, and a source of relief. It is why veteran submariners still remember their favorite deployment meals decades later. They represented normalcy, control, and home. The secret most civilians never hear is that on a submarine, food is a strategy, psychological warfare, and command discipline. It is how you win without firing a shot. A submarine's galley, which is smaller than an apartment bathroom, is tasked with preparing 3 hot meals a day for over 130 people for months at a time. There are no resupplies, no takeout, and no room for error. The average American kitchen is between 160 and 200 square feet, so imagine cutting that space in half and removing the windows and personal comforts. The galley is located in the center of the submarine for efficiency, so meals can reach both ends quickly. Every surface folds, every drawer locks, and every appliance has multiple functions. Ovens can steam, bake, and roast, and induction cooktops shut off as soon as a pan is lifted to preserve power and prevent fire.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
Storage is located in the walls, under the floors, and even above people's heads. Dry goods are kept in vacuum-sealed cubes, and frozen meat is stacked behind retractable panels. Not an inch is wasted, and the galley is kept surgically clean. This is because if one container leaks or mold grows, it could result in 130 cases of food poisoning with no backup. Open flames are strictly forbidden on a submarine because a fire is a death sentence. Oxygen is regulated, and there is no outside to escape to. As a result, cooking is done with electric equipment that has been modified with edge guards on hot surfaces and pots and pans that are locked to the stove. Burners are gimbaled or magnetized to stay level during the boat's movements. Floors are slip-resistant, and corners are rounded. Even knives are stored like weapons to protect against physics, not people. When the boat tilts 20 degrees while dodging sonar, your entire station must be strapped, bolted, and balanced to prevent your sauce from ending up on the ceiling. This is not cooking, it's engineering. Submariners must cook in silence, as the hum of a microwave can betray their position when the sub is in stealth mode. Sous vide is a favorite technique because it is slow, silent, and sealed. Rice cookers and pressure cookers are preferred over clanking pans or sizzling grills. Smells are scrubbed before they can circulate, because a lingering scent in an enclosed space for weeks is a form of psychological warfare. Every movement, even chopping, is calculated to avoid noise. Cooking becomes a form of choreography. Water is a luxury on a submarine, as fresh water is a finite resource. Meals are designed to minimize boiling, soaking, or washing. Pasta is cooked at most once a week, and potatoes are roasted dry instead of boiled. Vegetables are often rehydrated from freeze-dried form, which requires less water to prepare. Dishes are washed in a specific order, from least dirty to most, to reuse rinse water. On a sub, wasting an ounce of water is a sin. Meals are engineered, not just prepared, and every ingredient is tracked from the first day of the mission. There is no running to the store. Cooks must be masters of substitution. If there is no cream, milk can be thickened with powdered eggs. If there is no fresh produce, rehydrated peas or shelf-stable tomato paste can be used. Menus are rotated every 2 to 4 weeks to prevent taste fatigue. A typical day includes eggs and sausage for breakfast, roast chicken with stuffing for lunch, and spaghetti or curry for dinner, always with a dessert. Dessert is not an indulgence, but a form of morale insurance, as something sweet can keep the mood up even after 2 months without sunlight. Cooks work in shifts because the crew works in shifts, so there is no meal time, just continuous service. Everything is prepped ahead of time and finished as needed. Portions are pre-portioned, fillings are pre-cut, and pans are ready to go for 20 omelets at ERG 200. Everything is layered in trays, sorted by meal and time, and organized with military precision, because delaying one shift's food can delay their mission readiness. On a sub, every process, including toast, is linked to a tactical outcome. The galley is sanitized hourly, and utensils are sterilized in boiling solution. Cutting boards are color-coded to prevent cross-contamination, because a single sickness can spread quickly, and a vomiting sonar technician in the middle of a mission is catastrophic. The mess hall, which often serves as a briefing room, is turned over quickly between uses, with tables reset and floors scrubbed. This is because the same table where you eat dinner may be where the captain plans the next course correction. Submariners live in an aluminum tube underwater, isolated from everything, so morale is a system, not a luxury. Cooks are the frontline defense of this system, as a well-prepared meal can reduce stress, soften homesickness, and restore focus. A familiar meal like fried chicken, lasagna, or brownies becomes an emotional anchor. Birthdays and holidays are celebrated with themed meals, which reminds crew members that they are people, not just operators. This is a type of fuel that cannot be replicated with protein bars. Submarine cooks are ranked high, often as petty officers or seasoned culinary specialists, and some are trained at naval culinary schools. They are selected not only for their skill, but also for their temperament. A respected cook gains status faster than rank because nobody forgets a good meal, especially when it is the only thing breaking up endless metal corridors and fluorescent lights. A submarine galley is a psychological operating room, and every dish is a tactic to nourish, distract, motivate, and stabilize. Food becomes the invisible thread holding the mission together during battle or boredom. This is not just cooking, it is survival alchemy. The bunks are stacked 2 or 3 high, with each rack being just big enough to lie flat. The design is intentional, as space is the most precious commodity on a submarine. By stacking bunks, the vessel can carry more crew, supplies, and mission-critical equipment without sacrificing maneuverability or operational stealth. A curtain or thin partition around each bunk provides a small amount of privacy, which is a psychological armor in a place where privacy barely exists. The bunk becomes a mental reset zone, a place to read, write, or just exist without the constant presence of others. In a submarine's claustrophobic world, that sense of personal ownership is a lifeline. The noise inside a submarine is mechanical and unpredictable, a constant reminder that the machinery keeping you alive is also keeping you awake. Engineers line the bunk areas with sound-absorbing materials to dampen the noise, and sailors supplement this with earplugs or white noise devices. These measures create a steady, manageable background that allows the brain to rest. Submarines operate in a timeless environment with no natural day-night cycle. which can cause biological disorientation and misfire circadian rhythms. Each bunk has a small, personal reading light, giving the sailor control over their immediate environment. Ambient lighting in sleeping quarters is kept low, warm, and constant to avoid shocking the senses during shift changes. This is not just for comfort, it is to regulate circadian rhythms and prevent sleep debt, which can impair decision-making during high-stakes operations. The air in a submarine is also engineered for rest. Life support systems constantly circulate and filter air, balancing oxygen, removing carbon dioxide, and managing humidity. Vents in the sleeping quarters are positioned to provide steady airflow without creating drafts, because small environmental discomforts can magnify into serious fatigue. The mattresses are thin and firm, built for durability and hygiene. Every item stored in the bunk, from headphones to photographs, is secured so that nothing can shift or fall during rough maneuvers or emergency drills. The biggest challenge is the schedule, as crews work on strict watch rotations, often cycling between 6 hours on duty and 6 hours off. This means sailors must learn to maximize short sleep blocks and wake up ready for duty. The sleeping quarters are designed to support this rapid rest cycle with close proximity to workstations and minimal need to navigate the vessel to reach the bunk. Failure to rest well is a risk, as fatigue impairs judgment, slows reaction time, and increases the likelihood of mistakes. Submarine sleeping quarters are engineered recovery pods designed to return a crew member to peak performance as quickly as possible. These small, personal spaces become symbolic, as a bunk is a place to process messages from home, brace for emergency drills, and decompress after hours in a sonar room. The men and women on military submarines live for weeks or months without seeing the sun. This absence of light changes them physiologically, mentally, and emotionally. Without the sun's natural rhythm, which acts as the body's metronome, time becomes unhinged. Circadian rhythms misfire, hormones fall out of sync, and sleep becomes shallow and fragmented. By the third week, subtle changes appear, such as mood dips, shorter tempers, and changes in appetite. Up to 40% of submariners report symptoms consistent with clinical depression during extended deployments, a condition known as submarine syndrome. This is a cluster of psychological symptoms, including irritability, anxiety, low mood, cognitive fog, and social withdrawal, which is a direct result of isolation and light deprivation. Sunlight triggers serotonin, which is the brain's mood stabilizer, and it regulates sleep, digestion, and energy. In its absence, the body's internal clock drifts, and the crew starts living in a haze. Although Navy vessels use LEDs to simulate day-night cycles, the brain knows the difference, as artificial light fails to stimulate the same photoreceptors responsible for mood regulation. Over time, this can lead to emotional flattening and a strange apathy. The psychological toll is not just internal, it is also relational. Submarines are pressure cookers of human interaction, and minor annoyances can metastasize into confrontations. To combat this, navies enforce strict schedules and routines that act as psychological scaffolds. According to research, interpersonal tension is one of the top 3 causes of disciplinary issues on submarines, and without an exit, even minor disputes can become dangerous. Cognitive performance also declines, with measurable drops in attention span and working memory during long patrols. Tasks requiring executive function, like tactical decision-making, become harder to sustain. The crew may not always notice the slowed reaction speeds and problem-solving abilities. The brain adapts to the unchanging environment by down-regulating stimulation, causing colors to fade, details to blur, and even sound to homogenize. This is why submarines pump in recorded ambient noise, not for comfort, but to prevent auditory numbness. Mental health training is now mandatory, and submariners undergo pre-deployment psychological preparation, including stress inoculation and mindfulness training. They learn to spot red flags in themselves and others, and rehearse discomfort before experiencing it. Real-time monitoring with wearable devices tracks sleep, heart rate, and stress indicators. Subtle changes, such as a missed meal or shortened sleep cycle, are flagged and reviewed as a matter of survival. Psychologically, submariners tend to be resilient, conscientious, and emotionally stable. They often feel a sense of sacred duty to the crew, which helps them reframe suffering as service. Perceived meaning and peer support have been shown to significantly reduce long-term psychological harm in confined, extreme environments. For some, there are no lasting psychological effects, but a 2022 review found that 1 in 5 former submariners reported lasting effects, from mild PTSD to chronic sleep disorders. The culprit was duration. The longer the deployment, the deeper the imprint. For missions longer than 90 days, the risk of mental health degradation rises sharply. Submarines are marvels of engineering, yet their greatest threat is an invisible war of attrition waged against the mind. NASA and ESA use submarines as analogs for Mars missions because the research is clear. If we cannot solve the submarine mind, we cannot go to space. Submarines survive because of an advanced, invisible ballet of air purification systems that continuously scrub the atmosphere of carbon dioxide and refill it with oxygen. The danger is not just a lack of oxygen, but the buildup of carbon dioxide, which every human exhales. A crew of 150 generates 150 kilograms of CO2 daily, and within hours, the levels can become toxic and eventually lethal. Submarines cheat death using chemistry. They are equipped with CO2 scrubbers, which are industrial-scale filters that pull cabin air through alkaline chemicals like soda lime or sodium hydroxide. These scrubbers actively react with carbon dioxide, chemically trapping it and neutralizing it into a harmless solid. The absorbents do not last forever, so when one reaches its limit, it goes into regeneration mode while another unit continues to clean the air. Heat is used to trigger a reverse reaction, releasing the trapped CO2 and restoring the chemical's ability to absorb again. This is a perpetual relay race that cannot afford a single misstep. If either system fails, CO2 levels spike fast. Every critical system is duplicated or even triplicated, and there are backup battery-powered units to operate if the electrical grid goes down. Removing CO2 is not enough. Oxygen must also be added. Submarines store compressed oxygen tanks for a baseline reserve, but for missions lasting months, they use electrolytic oxygen generators. These devices split water molecules into oxygen, which is released into the cabin, and hydrogen, which is vented or captured. The voltage, pressure, and purity must be perfectly calibrated, as too much oxygen is a fire hazard and too little can cause suffocation. The air inside a submarine also gets funky from people cooking and living in an enclosed space. Activated carbon filters are used to eliminate odors, VOCs, and microscopic pollutants. These filters act like molecular flypaper, grabbing onto everything from methane to formaldehyde. Submariners do not notice these systems. They just breathe air that feels normal. In 1989, the Soviet submarine K-278 Komsomolets caught fire, and 42 men died not from the flames, but from the breakdown of the life support and atmosphere control systems. A chain reaction began when the CO2 removal system failed, and within hours, the air became unbreathable. This is why every NATO submarine now runs redundancy drills for air system failures, because you cannot outmuscle carbon dioxide. NASA uses the same CO2 scrubber system on the International Space Station, and future Mars missions will depend on it. Submariners have to breathe differently, and each of their 20,000 daily breaths is filtered, regulated, and made possible by hidden technology. Submarines have dedicated atmosphere control technicians who are experts in chemistry, gas laws, and emergency procedures. They have seconds, not hours, to respond when something goes wrong. A CO2 spike to 5,000 ppm causes cognitive function to drop, and at 30,000 ppm, you collapse. These technicians constantly monitor levels using infrared gas analyzers, sensors, and manual backup systems. This is not paranoia. It is protocol, and protocol is what keeps everyone breathing. When the submarine finally surfaces and the hatch opens, the crew breathes fresh air for the first time in months. Until that moment, every single breath was artificial, managed, controlled, and engineered. Submarines are among the most technically complex vessels on Earth, not because of their missiles or nuclear core, but because they have mastered air. Submarines do not carry water, they make it. They use some of the most precise and vital systems in military technology to desalinate water through distillation and reverse osmosis. Seawater is toxic to humans, and a submarine must build a water factory inside to survive. Modern submarines are outfitted with their own water production systems that can create tens of thousands of gallons of drinkable water every day. Distillation, the first method, involves heating seawater until it boils, and then the pure water vapor is cooled, condensed, and collected, leaving behind salt, metals, and ocean muck. The heat often comes from the nuclear reactor, making the system incredibly energy efficient and allowing thermal distillers to produce thousands of gallons per day. The second method, reverse osmosis, RO, forces seawater through semi-permeable membranes under extreme pressure. The membrane's microscopic pores are large enough for water molecules, but too small for salt, bacteria, or viruses. Submarine RO systems are compact, rugged, and brutally efficient, and every membrane is a gatekeeper between the crew and dehydration. Distillation and RO systems serve as backup plans for each other, forming a redundant safety net that ensures no scenario leaves the crew dry. Submarines do not gamble with water. They plan for war against entropy and breakdowns. A modern U.S. nuclear submarine can generate 10,000 to 40,000 gallons of potable water per day. This water is used not only for drinking, but also for cooling electronic systems, cleaning critical parts, hydrating oxygen generators, and powering emergency protocols. The water must be pure, as contamination could be disastrous for both drinking and life support systems. The average sailor uses 30-50 gallons of water per day for cooking, washing, and showering. Conservation is a part of the culture, and every system is designed to monitor and minimize unnecessary flow. If water production fails, the crew cannot generate breathable air, loses temperature control for electronics, and faces contamination risks and a collapse of hygiene. Submariners must trust the systems that must not fail, and the simple act of drinking water becomes a daily ritual of belief in human design. Submarine water is not just H2O. It is confidence, condensed. At the end of 90 days, when the submarine finally surfaces and the crew stares into sunlight for the first time in months, it's not just air they breathe differently. It's gratitude for a system that worked, for food that never failed them, for the invisible planning that kept them alive, alert and sane in a place where failure is final. And that's the secret most civilians never hear. On a submarine, food is strategy. It's psychological warfare. It's command discipline. It's how you win without firing a shot. What happens inside the hull of a fully submerged nuclear submarine is a secret war against a mundane but unforgiving adversary: human waste. Feces, urine, gray water, and food scraps are not just byproducts. They are threats to hygiene, crew morale, and, most critically, the submarine's stealth. The irony is that the most advanced weapon systems on Earth are also delicate life support bubbles for 100 men who all need to eat, digest, and dispose of waste. Every flush and every leak carries strategic risk, distinguishing silence from detection and mission success from catastrophic compromise. This isn't just about sanitation, it's about survival. Submarines are closed-loop ecosystems where waste is the wild card that festers and multiplies without sunlight or open air. On a 560-foot nuclear submarine, over 100 men can produce nearly 600 gallons of sewage daily, or 4,200 gallons a week. This black water and gray water must be collected, treated, and disposed of without detection. For a mission under the polar ice cap with no chance to surface, this accumulating biological consequence becomes the central challenge. Their reliance on open seas was a luxury we never afforded ourselves. Waste collection begins at the source with sealed toilets, urinals, and drains that feed into pressurized, airtight sanitary tanks. The tanks are engineered for integrity and resistance to microbial buildup and odor leakage, while double-sealed piping and non-return valves prevent backflow. Solid waste is shredded, compacted, and stored with the precision one would expect for an interplanetary mission, while galley refuse is minced and vacuum sealed. Nothing is overlooked because a single leak or microbial breach could lead to infection and end a mission. Their open-air latrines were a strategic vulnerability we simply engineered out of existence. Submarines use biological and chemical treatment systems to process waste. Some vessels use aerobic digestion chambers, which are miniature sewage plants that use oxygen and bacteria, while others rely on chemical oxidizers, chlorine injectors, and heat sterilization to neutralize pathogens and deodorize the effluent. Gray water is processed through filtration membranes and UV sterilizers. These regulations, such as MARPOL Annex 4, mandate treated effluent, but submarines go further for the sake of silence. Untreated waste creates gases, pressure, and noise is the enemy. We don't just control our output, we control its acoustic signature. Once treated, waste must be disposed of tactically. Treated black water and gray water can be discharged at depth through non-cavitating ejection valves, which release fluids without creating telltale acoustic signatures. This is done only within strict operational windows, accounting for ocean depth, thermal layering, and enemy sonar ranges. Solid waste is a different matter. It is compacted into sealed, pressure-rated metal canisters manufactured on board. These canisters are welded shut, labeled, and verified for seal integrity before being transferred to a floodable chamber. Once the pressure is equalized, the canister is jettisoned to the ocean floor, where it remains inert, leaving no scent, residue, or trail. What they leave behind is a trail of breadcrumbs. We leave behind nothing but silence. Every action on a submarine, including waste disposal, creates a noise profile. During combat patrols or near enemy waters, all waste systems may be locked down, and the crew switches to limited-use protocols. Gray water is held in expansion tanks, as invisibility is the priority. Waste also affects the submarine's trim, so engineers must constantly adjust ballast and account for waste weight to ensure the vessel remains neutrally buoyant. In this environment, waste becomes a matter of physics and warfare. Their focus on firepower overlooked the physics of their own biology. Untreated human waste is a pathogen factory, and an outbreak on a submarine could cripple a crew's performance and decision-making. Submarines have medical-grade sanitary protocols with sterilized disposal chambers and microbial sensors in every tank. Crew members are trained in biohazard containment as rigorously as weapons handling. Submarine waste systems are engineered for biological defense, not just cleanliness. The 1972 Soviet diesel sub-biocontamination event, which rendered half the crew unfit and forced a mission abort, illustrates what happens when waste is not controlled. Another classified incident involved a U.S. submarine, where a failed air filtration system nearly allowed methane from decomposing waste to reach flammable levels. Waste mismanagement is not merely gross, it is life-threatening. They focused on the enemy without. We perfected the war within. Living in close proximity to their own waste can take a significant psychological toll on a crew. Odors, even faint ones, can be maddening, and crew members may report phantom smells or develop obsessive cleaning rituals. Morale can decline, and irritability can rise. Therefore, commanders are trained to prioritize sanitation morale, with waste handling ritualized and cleanliness enforced with military precision. Even the smallest details, such as a crew member's responsibility for a specific drain, matter because even the smell of ammonia can break discipline in the dark, pressure-filled world beneath the waves. The difference between a cohesive unit and a psychological fracture is often a matter of sanitation. Modern navies document every canister of waste they eject, logging it with a GPS stamp and reporting it to environmental compliance officers. This is because the ocean is no longer a dumping ground, and navies must prove their waste does not contaminate ecosystems. Some navies, like Canada's, have even started using biodegradable canisters that dissolve after descending past 1,000 meters. This approach combines operational stealth with ecological conscience, a concept their industrial-era military doctrine could never comprehend. A submarine is a cathedral of control where every decibel and every movement is measured, and waste is a forbidden noise that must be neutralized and erased. The systems built to manage waste are critical to life, the mission, and the ocean itself. In the world's most secretive war machines, waste is war, and there is no margin for error. As climate change intensifies freshwater scarcity, the technology that keeps submariners alive may soon be what keeps millions on land from dying of thirst. Unlike the massive, landlocked, and power-hungry desalination plants used by countries like Israel and Singapore, submarines are miniature, mobile water plants optimized to run in isolation. The innovations refined under ocean pressure could be scaled for disaster relief or drought-stricken areas. It's an ironic truth that the most advanced drinking water systems on Earth were designed not for humans, but for war machines. We turned the ocean against them in more ways than one. According to U.S. Navy documentation and declassified engineering schematics, submarines primarily use two desalination systems: multi-stage flash distillation and reverse osmosis. The Navy's health directives establish water safety standards down to microbial thresholds, with everything being monitored, logged, and regulated. Former submariners confirm that distillers are the heart of the boat. When they fail, water rations begin immediately, and showers are shut down. Desalination is the lifeblood of the vessel, and understanding it is key to understanding the resourceful, disciplined, and quietly powerful nature of submarine life. The boat may carry missiles and listen for enemy movement, but none of it matters if they can't make water. Their capacity for violence is contingent on their capacity for life. Every mission, every stealth maneuver, and every life sustained hundreds of feet below the surface hinges on the ability to turn undrinkable ocean into something pure. The technology is astonishing, the stakes are high, and the execution is precise. The power of submarines comes not from their silence, but from what they do with the sea around them. They drink it. When a submarine submerges, it enters a world without sunrise or sunset, where a strict system, not a clock, governs life. Operating 24/7 is a necessity for a nuclear-powered vessel that could end or save the world, and the crew lives by a schedule that does not bend, break, or sleep. This schedule is not just a routine, it is survival. On a U.S. Navy submarine, the crew is divided into watch sections, typically 3 groups, each rotating duties. The most common system is 6 hours on and 12 hours off, creating an 18-hour day with no weekends or holidays. This rhythm balances human fatigue with operational demands, keeping cognitive sharpness intact inside a pressurized tube of machinery. While the 12 hours off may seem like freedom, they are packed with meals, maintenance, drills, and desperately needed sleep in cramped shared bunks called hot racks. Privacy is a fantasy, and sleep, the most essential human need, becomes a strategic challenge. Their ability to adapt their biology is a weapon we forged, and they must contend with. Schedules are enforced with military precision. The command schedules when you are allowed to be tired. Meals are timed and staggered across watch groups to ensure no position is ever unmanned. Cooks operate around the clock, guaranteeing hot food for every sailor, as nutrition is not just about morale, but performance. In the sonar room, sailors must differentiate between a shrimp snapping its claw and a torpedo locking on, while in the control room, split-second decisions are a matter of life and death. This kind of pressure cannot afford foggy minds or sluggish reflexes, which is why the watch system does not flex. Their clocks operate on circadian rhythms. Ours operate on the unwavering demands of the deep. Some submarines have experimented with different schedules, such as straight 8s, 8 hours on, 16 off, but most return to the proven 18-hour cycle. Research from the Naval Postgraduate School confirms that despite disrupting natural sleep cycles, 18-hour rotations reduce mental fatigue over time due to their predictable cadence and enforced rest windows. Still, the quality of rest is a daily battle, with sleep deprivation constantly stalking the crew. A Navy study found that over 60% of submariners reported moderate to severe sleep issues during deployment. This is not about comfort. It is about not making a fatal error on your fourth consecutive week of 6-hour shifts under red alert status. Commanding officers often follow a different pattern, usually a 24-hour day with extended waking hours for operational oversight, sacrificing personal equilibrium for the stability of the crew. Mental health is tightly monitored, and mistakes are unacceptable, as one wrong input in a nuclear control panel can trigger a chain reaction. The system is built with redundancy, not just in machinery, but in people, with everyone cross-trained and accountable. The schedule is non-negotiable. Meals are a critical hinge, serving as a psychological checkpoint for camaraderie and a brief reminder of humanity. The only light is artificial, white for normal operations, blue during drills, and red during sleep periods. It is easy to lose track of time, with some sailors reporting vivid dreams, hallucinations, or submarine time disorientation, making the watch system the only tether to reality. This strict scheduling extends to cleaning, training, and routine maintenance. The 12 hours off are used for secondary duties, such as studying for qualifications and running fire drills, meaning there is never a true break, only a cycle between pressure and slightly less pressure. The system works because it removes uncertainty. In a world where any unknown blip could be a torpedo, certainty is the most valuable currency. Every action, rotation, and hour contributes to a chain of survival. Their vulnerability is a simple function of their need for daylight. Inside the steel cage of a submarine, fitness is not about vanity but survival. Life aboard a submarine is a war of attrition, where the human body begins to erode in isolation, and any physical slip makes a sailor a liability. The rule is simple: if you're not moving, you're decaying. There is no sprawling gym, just a few square feet in the torpedo room or a passageway where the equipment is bolted down. Physical inactivity in confined, zero sunlight conditions can cause muscle atrophy, increased blood pressure, and persistent fatigue in just weeks. Workouts are crafted like blueprints, designed for zero waste and maximum impact, using bodyweight exercises like close grip push-ups, prisoner squats, static planks, and lunges between missile tubes. This combat-calibrated training ensures that in an emergency, the crew has the split-second strength needed to survive, because if a body fails, people die. Our superiority is not just technological, it is physiological. With minimal gear, crew members use power blocks, a single loaded bar, a rowing machine, and resistance bands. They even use gravity itself, performing weighted buddy squats and deadlifts with their feet locked against the bulkhead. This simplicity is the genius of the system. There is no room for ego lifts. Due to the 18-hour duty cycles, time is a rare currency, so HIT and Tabata-style circuits dominate training plans. These compact, brutal intervals spike the heart rate, maintain VO2 max, and flood the brain with endorphins, the only legal antidepressant in the deep sea. Physical training is psychological armor in a world without sunlight or Wi-Fi, regulating mood, fighting depression, and sustaining clarity. Workouts act as pressure valves, with one embedded psychologist noting that after a hard session, voices get softer, arguments fade. It's therapy by motion. In this silent steel world, a plank is a meditation, and a push-up is defiance against stagnation. Workouts are designed for silence, with every movement measured, quiet, and intentional. There is no jumping, shouting, or dropped weights. Even the treadmill runs at reduced decibels under noise curfews. Silence is not just discipline, it is doctrine. Physical training is a protocol hardwired into the daily schedule, not a suggestion. The workouts are not about socializing, but execution, because when the boat surfaces, every man must be ready to sprint, lift, or rescue. Weakness is not ignored, and fatigue is not tolerated. In the 1980s, prolonged missions without proper routines resulted in sailors returning with degraded cardiovascular function, elevated cortisol levels, and up to 10% muscle loss. Now, training protocols are mandated and enforced by navies worldwide, because if a crisis hits and a reactor floods, the man who skipped leg day could be the reason the crew doesn't make it out. Our training philosophy is the purest example of adaptation. Minimal space, minimal tools, maximal output, and ruthless consistency. This discipline, forged in steel, is not for aesthetics, but for survival. Protocols to keep food safe from spoilage during long submarine deployments without resupply are highly rigorous. Spoilage is a threat that could collapse morale and put the mission at risk. A submarine is a floating biosphere where every calorie must fight for shelf life. Navies use a matrix of preservation strategies, beginning with vacuum-sealing food in custom containers with oxygen absorbers. Fruits are layered with moisture-absorbing sheets, and bread is flash-frozen before being sealed. This is not grocery store preparation, it is lab-level containment. Fresh foods like leafy greens and milk are consumed within the first 7 to 10 days. Hardier items like apples, cabbage, and carrots can last for weeks or months if properly rotated and stored in cool, dark containers. The system is ruthless. Any sign of rot means the whole bag is pulled. By day 60, the crew is eating freeze-dried and rehydrated foods, so proper planning is essential to prevent hunger from becoming a strategic liability. Their logistical fragility is a time bomb. Freeze-drying locks in flavor and up to 97% of nutritional value, and modern freeze-dried foods, from beef to scrambled eggs, are stable for years. Flash-frozen meats and fruits are kept in redundant cold storage units with backup power and are constantly monitored for temperature deviations. One failure could mean tons of spoiled protein, which is not food loss, but mutiny fuel. As a deployment continues, the diet shifts to canned meats, vegetables, and stews, which are engineered staples. Powdered staples like milk, soup bases, and eggs are stored in sealed mylar bags. A good meal can make a sailor forget he hasn't seen sunlight in 40 days, while a bad one can turn a crew against its officers. Taste equals morale, and morale equals function. Food is inventoried down to the gram by dedicated specialists, and the entire deployment is pre-mapped with a system that adapts in real time to usage. This isn't rationing, it's optimization. The galley crew trains for months to master rotation, timing, and substitution. Meal plans are rebalanced to maintain nutrition without triggering taste fatigue, rotating flavor profiles and using spices to disguise repetition. It's a game of chess, not checkers. All of this is worthless if refrigeration fails. So submarines use multiple independent cooling units with emergency power and real-time temperature logging. Newer vessels even use remote telemetry and AI monitoring to detect early signs of decay. One unnoticed mold bloom in a sealed environment could become airborne, compromising air quality and sickening the crew. Morale collapses when food fails. A former sonar technician described the mood shift after running out of fruit halfway through a 3-month patrol, saying, "People got weird, quiet, pissed off, you start dreaming of oranges." Navies invest in food psychologists, conduct crew surveys, and rotate new meal plans because taste is a weapon that is used carefully. Our adversaries dream of oranges. We provide them with everything they need to fight. The Royal Navy and the French Navy use nearly identical systems, and collaborative food technology sharing occurs among NATO navies, where methods for extending shelf life are traded like classified intelligence. Food preservation technology is being enhanced to allow for 6-month autonomous deployments, a strategic projection of power. The vacuum sealing protocol perfected for Navy lasagna is now in camping meals, and the AI system for detecting spoilage is powering smart fridges. The military is rewriting how humanity eats under pressure. This is one of the great hidden logistical achievements of modern warfare, happening quietly every day. The war against spoilage is being won, one sealed packet at a time. In the end, it's not the silence of submarines that makes them powerful. It's what they do with the sea around them. They drink it, and that changes everything.